Hi guys, today we're talking about the Realist 45 stereo camera. I bought this camera for $43.75. On eBay they're worth about $75 plus shipping, and I'd say its condition is fair. It has a little cosmetic damage on the finish. It's got a lot of little spots and stuff, but it seems to work just fine. The only personal significance to this is my only stereo camera. Stereo cameras are kind of fascinating, but they're usually fairly expensive and they're not a lot different from one another. This one is kind of unique in a couple of ways. One is the viewfinder is on the bottom, which actually, if you think about it, is where all viewfinders should be on cameras. If you hold this up to your face with the viewfinder on the bottom, your nose is never in the way of your screen on the back or the eyepiece or anything, or the rewind knob. It just sets against your forehead and you take pictures. Seems to be, I wish all cameras had been designed that way from the beginning. These were made from 1955 to 1971. I believe this model was a copy of one that they also were manufactured in Germany, but the camera was an American design. One of the unique features about this camera is when you focus it, and this is the focusing ring here, which is sort of on the front and sort of on the top, you don't actually move the lenses, you move the focal plane in the back, and I'll show you a video of the focal plane moving in a bit. It takes 35 millimeter film. If you use 35 exposure film, you get about 28 stereo pictures. The image is every 5 sprocket holes, and then it's called a 5P or a realistic format. And so the first frame coming off the film, if you develop it, would be the left lens, and then the second frame would be blank. The third frame would be the second picture from the left lens again, and then the next frame would be the first picture from the right lens, then the third picture from the left lens, and toggles back and forth. Very strange, but it's a very efficient way of taking pictures. So when you do the film advance, it actually advances the film basically 3 frames at a time, which brings the unused parts into the left frame because it advances on the left side here from the right side. Very strange, but became a standard. On the front of the camera, we have a cocking lever here, which is only used if you want to take single exposures or double exposures. And by single exposures, I mean if you didn't want to use it as a stereo camera. You could actually advance the film, cover one lens, take a picture, cock the shutter, cover the other lens, take a picture, then advance the film again and repeat the same process if you wanted to take lots of little bitty pictures instead of any stereo pairs. If you just wanted to take a double exposure, you would normally just advance the film, take a picture, then cock the shutter one more time, and you advance the film like this. Well, it is advanced now. You advance the film like this. You would take the picture, and then you could cock the shutter again and take another picture, and then you could advance the film, and so that would have been your double exposure. On the left side on the front is your shutter speed dial, and it goes from a setting of B to 1/25th to 1/50th, 1/100th, and 1/200th of a second. On the right side of the dial is for the aperture from f3.5 to f16. And like I say, that's the viewfinder on the bottom. On the top of the camera, I'll turn this around. This is your cocking lever, one single stroke, and like I say, it actually advances 3 little micro frames so that everything lines up inside. And that's your your exposure, your shutter button. This is the film counter, and it advances a red dial around as you keep advancing it and taking pictures. And then when you take the back off and reload the film, it puts the red dial back to 0. Works pretty neat. This is a hot shoe. This is the film reminder indicator window. Right now it's on empty. To change it, you have to press real hard on this knob here and then turn it like so. I'll put it back to empty, and I'll show some pictures of that if I can. The shutter button has a standard cable release thread, and this is the focusing wheel, and there's an indicator here to show the distance scale of where you focused. And because this is not a rangefinder, you either have to guess or set the dial in here for the distance. It focuses actually very easily, and while I'm doing that, inside it's actually moving the whole film plane back and forth, not the lenses, and there's a little red depth of field scale to go with it. On the sides of the camera, there's only the little straps for the neck strap, lugs for the neck straps. On the camera back, there's just the viewfinder. And the bottom gets a little interesting. This is the rewind button, so if you fully expose your pictures, you would rewind it by holding this in and cranking the rewind wheel. Here's the tripod socket, and a very extensive and good exposure guide with all kinds of directions. This is, you can barely see it, there's a little lever here for the rewind knob release, and you push that lever and the rewind knob pops up. At that point, you could crank this to rewind the film if you hold down this button. If you pull it up further, like that, and then turn it counterclockwise, you'll feel resistance, and that can open the back. And we'll do that now. We'll turn this. It opens the back. Now the back is not hinged. It's got a little tongue to snap in. So when you lift it out, it comes completely out. So you would put your blank film in here and reset this knob back in, and then you would thread your film onto the knob here and then keep cranking a couple times until you get the film to advance. Then you could close the back and advance it, and it tells you to advance it 2 more times after you close the back. Now to put the back on, you have to be a little careful because you could bend this tab, and this is the viewfinder hole, lines up with that hole. So you just put this in carefully. And it snaps shut. Beautiful little camera. If you like stereo cameras, this is a fairly nice one to get. If you wanted to actually create stereo pictures, you better have a dark room and do it yourself. It's not impossible, but just about impossible to find anybody to do the developing and the mounting, whether you want to have pictures mounted on a special stereo viewer or whether you want to do transparencies and end up putting them in like a viewfinder. It's a process that's gone a long ways, and nobody does it anymore. And if you know of someone, well, good luck, pass the word on in the notes. But it's just a decoration, and it was an interesting era in photography. Well, thanks a lot for watching, guys, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Here's a shameless plug for my latest book called Nav Deck. It's about the Navy, and it's about deck. It's available on all of the e-book suppliers, Amazon's Kindle, the Apple Bookstore, Barnes & Noble, Kobo, and it's available in paperback only from lulu.com.